Hi guys, I've already done a video on some of the arguments we have to solve. Don't have to worry about my face, I'm not that special looking anyway, so it's just lighted in my place right now at sort of 11 o'clock at night. That's all it is. I'm not trying to hide my face. You can see my face on the channel anyway, so you don't need to worry about that. Anyway, I've already done a video about some of the arguments we have, but there's more than that. Alright, there's a lot more than that that I could have gone into. Alright. So, what I'm essentially going to do is I'm going to start on the first couple. Alright. I'm going to start on the standard Americanized arguments. Alright, because they're the most publicised. Not because they're the most relevant, they're not. Alright, but because they're the most publicised. Okay. Now, between left and right, they always work on little idioms of what they stand for to convince their base and the other people that transfer from base to base of what their ideologies are. They're not. You can see it by what they do. So, I'll give you an example, yeah? Abortion rights. Abortion rights are irrelevant to everybody except the woman and her medical professional. Now, yes, you can say the husband or boyfriend has a say as well, but you'd have to assume they'd already talked about that with the woman. So it is between the woman and her medical professional, because that is who would have to sort of do the medical part of it. Okay? That's that. Gun rights. Gun rights are something that everybody knows are meaningless except because they want them. And everybody knows that some people take advantage of that. It's like somebody speeding at 70 miles an hour on a 30 mile an hour road and killing a family. You know, it seems insane to you, me saying that, but it is exactly like that. You know, Jim Jeffries said it right. We have to go as fast as the slowest person in that community. That's basically what it is. You know, some people will take advantage of that and some people won't. But you cannot give people the opportunity to do that. By taking that opportunity away from them, you take the whole thing away from your society too. That's the way it works. And again, you can't fight the government with a gun, because they've got a lot more guns than you, a lot more capacity to fight you than you. So if you ever want to think about a revolution, well, it's not going to happen unless everybody's on your bloody side, including the bloody drones, which means the military as well, and the police too. So that's how that works. Alright? So, anyway, that's a couple of the major things. Now let's look at climate change. A couple of days ago, the US signed a climate change bill. Now, some people are fixating on a couple of basic things. They're turning around and saying, well, basically, we're trying to move towards electric cars. Why? It's actually quite easy. Alright? They're saying we're trying to create zero emissions. Why? When everybody else isn't. It's actually quite easy. It's a new business opportunity. It's a new way to move to the next level of taking funds from you. Okay? They're giving funds to oil and gas because they need that to continue as long as it can. But they're creating the next megalomaniac, which is, you know, Tesla. It's Tesla vehicles. You don't see that. You don't see what that is. He's been building himself up for years, just like Richard Branson did over here in the UK. And it's all for the same reason. He's the next megalomaniac. He's the one that goes on to the next series of fuels and goes and becomes the next magnate, the next oligarch that gives this amount of money to the government but doesn't pay taxes because it doesn't have to, just like Google, YouTube, etc. don't have to. Alright? And we'll come to those things in a moment. The next thing is that bill turned around and said, oh, we're putting £15 corporate rates, 15% corporate rates, taxes on every corporation. What about the corporations that don't pay taxes? You already know the answer to that. You don't need me to tell you. If they're not paying taxes now, they're not going to be paying taxes then. So where does it go? The middle classes. Same as everything else for the last 3 years has gone on to. It's all really simple, isn't it? It's still the transfer of wealth. Okay, now that's those couple of things out of the way, just the Americanisms. Now, over in the UK, where I am now, we have Labour saying they're in for the working people, Conservatives acting like they're in for the, oligarchs, the corporations, the businesses, etc. It's all the same. It's all crap. All right, because the fact of the matter is nothing ever changes. If you understand taxation, and I'll explain it to you in a second, then you know the only people that benefit from it are the people that don't pay taxes and the people that only pay a limited taxes on one step, not the people that have to buy the things at the end of the supply chain. Okay? So let's look at this for a moment, yeah? I use this example in another video. I'll use it again because it's appropriate. You buy a washing machine from PC World, yeah? Now, you have the price PC World charges you, and then you have on top of that their 20% VAT. You consider that a tax on there and you think that's the only tax you're paying. That's correct, isn't it? That's what you think. But if you take it back a step to where PC World bought that machine from, they bought that machine at the cost price plus the profits plus the VAT that particular company put that sort of washing machine at, and then they added their costs onto it as well. All right. Now, how many steps does that go back? Not everything is the same amount of steps, but it is always multiple steps. So by the time you go back through all the steps on any supply chain, on any item, everything apart from like a penny or two's cost is literally the profits of the multiple companies on the supply chains and the taxation being added onto it. So, when you think about it like that, how does taxation actually work in terms of what the government gets? And this is a relevant thing, you know? They turn around and say they're taking 30% from you on your wages, for example, yeah? And they're taking a little bit of national insurance, say 15%. Say they're taking 45% from you overall, minus a little allowance they give you, yeah? That's the way they're supposed to work, yeah? That's what you see on the receipt. But there's multiple things to that, because everything you buy has all those chains of taxation added onto it, and it has all those chains of profits added onto it that have to go elsewhere. So you're basically paying everybody else's taxes because they're putting the bill forward to the next step, and you're paying all their profits too. Does it sound like the consumer is taking on every bit of the bill? It does, doesn't it? Of course it does. So there you go. That's how taxation works. But there's another side to that, the mathematics of it. Alright? Now, mathematically speaking, yeah, a few years ago, the government in the UK charged the taxpayer 56 million, I believe it was, to renovate Buckingham Palace for the royal family. Now, knowing what you know about taxes, how much of that was taxed based on the materials and the labour and the expenditure of the labourers and the workers, and went back to the government? So, when they billed us 56 million, why didn't they credit that with all the tax and everything they got back? Because you don't see it. Because you don't need to. You don't need to see it. Right? You're stuck in your system. You don't need to believe anything different than what you believe now. It's just a receipt in front of you. Why does anything else matter? Okay. That's those couple of things, okay? Now, I've just explained taxation. I've explained a couple of arguments, but there are some bigger arguments we have to have as well. Alright? Much bigger arguments, alright? Now, and also some more sensitive arguments. Now, left and right argue about trans rights and women's rights, but they oppose each other. Why do they oppose each other? Because politics is as oppositional as law is. Alright? It's politicians throwing arguments at each other to have arguments thrown back, and hoping their base and a few people outside their base that are floaters actually go into their side. That is what politics is. That's what the two-party system is. That's why every debate you see is basically a slanging match. Oh, you did this, you did that. No, you did this, you did that. No, I don't agree that you did that. Yeah, well, I don't agree you did that. Do you know what? It's all irrelevant. Nobody's actually doing anything to change things. Why? Because they don't have to. Because everybody in our species, everybody in all our societies, in any so-called democracy, clings to the idea that a couple of things they say as sound bites is enough to validate our ideologies. Like they're actually sharing our ideologies when we see it every year that they don't. That's the thing we have to change. We have to stop thinking like that. Okay? We have to stop thinking about that and thinking like that and start changing things. We need people that actually want to change things, not the people that are trying to maintain things. And yeah, we might go through a little bit of crap changing things. We might get some disappointments. But you know what? How many more disappointments do you need with all the systems you have in place now before you say it's time to try something new? I think maybe you have to. Right? And two situations will come from that. And this I alluded to on my last video as well. Right? Either the government will not allow you to have that party in place and will tell you they don't want that party in place because it's too extreme or doesn't adhere to the rules, which has happened so many times you wouldn't believe it. You just haven't seen it. You've just fallen for the narrative. Right? And sometimes rightly, sometimes wrongly. I'll grant you that. Okay? But that is basically how it goes. You're going to have to change what you vote for, which means you're going to have to research more. You're going to have to engage more in politics. You're going to have to be something different yourself. All right? George Carlin said it years ago. Where are all these people of conscience? Do you know where they are? They don't exist because we all think we have to adhere to the two-party system and be what they are. We don't think we can change anything. And because we don't think we can change anything, we don't change anything. That's the way we work. We just don't do what we should do. Okay? We believe we're helpless, so we do nothing. Believe you can change it. And believe the only way to change it is by changing it. Okay? That is the thing you have to see. Okay? Next, we'll go into another couple of things. Alright? Left and right argue about climate change. No, there is no climate change. Yes, there is climate change. It's all crap. It's all crap. It's all too extremised narratives that don't exist in the configurations they're presented as. Okay? Global warming will happen, but our planet is also a growing thing. How did the continents separate themselves? They separated themselves because the planet grows. Right? You don't believe it grows? Well, okay, simple question. When you hear about an earthquake event under the sea, and you get a 2 metre split at the bottom of the sea, that then fills with lava, which then cools, you've increased the base of the sea by 2 metres. How much else have you increased by 2 metres by doing that? And how many times does that happen? That's how the continents split. They didn't just turn around and say, well, hold on, let's move away from each other a little bit in the sea, because they're actually attached to the bottom of the ocean. They're attached to the ocean floor. They're not floating islands, you know? So you've got that, okay? That's one of the things on global warming. The next thing you have on global warming is that, yes, we are a part of it, but we're not the whole thing. Because the planet itself is growing and expanding, and because the solar system itself is expanding and growing, temperatures are going to change. So what we're actually doing is resisting our idea of having to adapt to natural changes, while pretending that the changes we inflict on the planet are entirely our responsibility and that we have to stop that and that stopping that will be enough. It won't be. We will have to adapt to the way this earth changes if we're going to survive it. We'll have some cities go under sea. We'll have some land masses rise above. That's the way it's going to be. We're going to have to adapt. Right? It's going to be basically like moving Venice to a land mass rather than a water mass in some cases. That will happen. It won't happen today or tomorrow, but over time these things will happen. We'll have to adapt to them. So there's your climate change. All right? We're not all responsible for it. But America just put in a climate change bill, And you may not see this yet, but again, as I mentioned, it's a transfer of wealth. That is what this is. Right? It seems good in principle unless you actually understand what is happening with this planet. And the fact that the global companies I apologise for that, that don't pay taxes now are not going to pay any more taxes. And that they're actually trying to bring in new magnates to take more of the wealth. And that you believe those magnates are something special and something revolutionary and something that's going to change your world. No, they're just going to make it stay the same. Okay? They're just going to make it stay the same. Because that's the way it goes. All right? Unless you change it. Okay? So Elon Musk might have some nice ideas, but he's the same as everybody else. He's the same as Bezos, Zuckerberg, all of them. Okay? He's the same as the lot. Okay? He's building this up for himself, not for us. Okay? He's doing his publicity stunts and all that, same way Richard Branson did like 10, 20, 30 years ago. It's no different. It's just another way for somebody else to get all the wealth to them while agreeing government contracts that give them all the wealth and give the government all the money to send to them while getting all the taxes back from them to get the discounts that they're not telling you about and they're not sort of sending back to you. That's the way it works. That's how it is. Alright? Okay. So we've done climate change, alright, and how we have to adapt to things. How about pollution? Well, until everybody changes that, our resources will be depleted more than just our own usage. We're basically destroying systems and making it so they can't recover naturally with how much we're stripping them. That's what we're doing. Okay? And that's not us. I'm not doing that. I'm not going out sort of tearing apart ecosystems. It's the big businesses doing that. Same as it is doing everything else. Why do you think that's not going to change? Because it's not. Why would they change when they don't have to? Alright? They give you little ecological principles that they're putting forward and you act like, oh, well, okay, well that invalidates all the rainforests you're tearing down. That invalidates all the animals you're killing. All the trees you're tearing down that are 200 feet tall and taking that much H2O in at night and putting that much oxygen out and replacing them with saplings, that you're actually maintaining things. No, they're not. They're tearing things apart and you're watching them do it. When will they stop? When we make them. They're not going to stop based on their own needs, because their own needs are to make money, and they make money as long as we let them do it. As long as we allow those things to be the way they make money, they're going to do that. So that's not going to change. So we're going to keep watching our resources being depleted by two things. Pollution, yeah, and depletion of resources. And both are essentially depletion of resources. We're going to keep doing that. Alright? Not us, but we're going to keep allowing it as long as we keep falling for little things that make us think, oh, this tiny little thing this company is doing makes a difference. It doesn't. The larger things they do make a difference. The larger things everybody does makes a difference. It's the whole picture. It's everything. Alright? And you've got to see that. Okay. So what else is there? Okay, religion. You know what? You have atheists, you have religious people. Screw that. Every religious book was written by humans as a means for control. If you actually sort of explore those religions fully, you can see how that happened. Okay? You can see. I'm not going to go into great detail now. I went into some detail on one of my other videos here. Okay? I don't need to do it here. But every religion was created for control by specific individuals. Every religious book is a human written book. You want to be spiritual, you want to believe there's something more after death, well, you can believe that. But don't believe anybody that wrote a religious book knows it. Because they don't. Because they weren't dead when they wrote it. They didn't come back from the dead when they wrote it. They just wrote something that worked for them at the time. Same as happens now. Okay? Nobody's come back from the dead and wrote a religious book and said, this was my last 7 days as a dead person. This is where I went. This is how I came back. Nobody's done that. Why? Because that's not why religious books are written. Okay? But if you want to be spiritual, to some degree, allow yourself to be spiritual. Being an atheist is also wrong. Okay? The correct way to be is to say, I don't know everything. That's the way to be. Okay? Don't be religious, don't be anti-religious. Turn around and say, well, I understand where these religions came from, but I also understand that I don't know everything. So there may be more to this universe and maybe more to my consciousness than I know. And there may be. I don't know everything myself. Alright? I can't turn around and say like atheists do, when I'm dead, I'm dead. I can't do that. But I can say, with absolute certainty, I'm not going up to heaven or down to hell or any version of that from any religion, because all those books were written by humans. Alright? So I have to say I don't know. And everybody should be doing that too. Alright? And it should come down to one thing. Us making every minute of our lives valuable in every respect. Don't stand outside a hospital offering pamphlets to people there. And I've seen this myself and it's disgusted me. Yeah? Take this to your loved ones that are on their deathbed. Help them make their peace. Don't help them make their peace. Help them live every last minute of their lives with as much comfort as they can, meaning you. All right? That's what you do. All right? You don't turn around and say, don't worry, Nan. Don't worry, Mum. Give up. Don't do that. That's bullshit, all right? That is half-assed. It doesn't give them comfort. It doesn't give them closure, and it doesn't expand who they are into your lives as much as it should. Okay? So that's how you should treat them. The Eskimos have a good way of doing it. Okay? It's not the best way, but it's part of the way there. Right? When an old person looks like they're going to be dying soon, they send that old person on a raft out into the sea to die. But they spend time with that old person first. They spend time talking with them, learning their experiences and validating that person within the tribe, within the group, within the family group, whichever it is. And that's the closest thing we have to a proper way to treat a human being that is about to die. Give them the respect they deserve. Give them validity in every final moment they have. Treat them like they deserve to be treated. Treat them like they're still part of us until they're not. That's the way to comfort somebody. Alright? That's how you do it. Okay? Anyway, that's the religious thing. Now, aliens. Travel to other planets. All these things come down to the same things. We're limited, based on our physiologies, as to how fast we can travel. Right, Voyager can travel a certain speed, it can keep accelerating up to a certain rate. But we couldn't do that. So, you couldn't travel to the outskirts of the galaxy in 50 years like Voyager did. Right? Because it'd kill you. Because of the constant acceleration. We all know that. Or do we? Well, why is it any different to anything else? Or for anything else? It's not. It's not. So, the only way we will ever travel to a planet that has other life on it, and don't take this the wrong way, folks, because all this, oh, we're going to Mars crap, it is crap, right? It's this planet we have to sort of maintain. We're not going anywhere else. But the only way we will ever see life on another planet is by actually creating recyclable material that takes oxygen, that is basically atoms spread apart farther than we need to use them, to try and create oxygen within an environment to sustain food we're trying to grow and maintain and to sustain ourselves. Now, if you know how far apart every atom is in space, you know that couldn't be done. You know that couldn't be done. But just a couple of facts that are relevant. All right? We're not going to another planet. This is the planet we have to maintain. All right? And it comes down to what I mentioned earlier. The only way we maintain this planet is by stopping the people that are tearing this planet apart from doing that, and all start taking responsibility for it, and also for ourselves. And here's another one for you. I don't know if you've watched every program on the One China rule. Yeah? On the One Child rule in China. Sorry, I apologise. But By them imposing a one-child rule, now they did it the wrong way and they were too extreme on it. I'll grant you that, but the one-child rule reduced the population, and that is a way to reduce the population safely. Okay, which is something we all have to do. That particular idea has to be pushed along the entire world. We all have to start doing that. We all have to take our part in the responsibility. It's not just our recycling. It's not just eating vegetables, because vegetables are the same as meat. They're living things. You don't see it, but they are. All right? They have parts of them that aren't sentient, but they are still living things. It is easier to grow them on a larger scale, but it is still the same thing. For any living thing to sustain itself, it has to take in living matter. There is no other way to do it. It's horrible, but it's true. In fact, believe it or not, the only truly moral creature on this planet is actually the gorilla, because it only eats fruit. And the plants that it takes the fruit from have actually created that fruit to spread their seeds. So it's decided to sacrifice its cells, essentially, to spread its seeds to propagate itself. Funny, isn't it? Funny, isn't it, how things work out. But we're not going to all do that. But we do have to change the way we are. Now, when it comes to animal resources, every living thing feels and thinks the same way we do, as do most plants in most of their senses and in most of their parts. Not all, as I've just explained. Like, you have a potato, the potato will feel more than the leaf. The leaf will have sensations. The potato is basically the root. That's the way it works. All right? You see an orange tree, the orange is not the same as the leaves or the branches. The leaves or the branches are the things that sustain the tree. They're the things that turn the leaves up towards the rain, to get the rainwater to feed the oranges, to grow the oranges, you know. But again, it's sort of like, while it's not necessarily a choice the tree makes, it is a moral choice for other things, because the tree is essentially having to sacrifice those cells to perpetuate itself, to create other trees elsewhere. Of course, it's not relying on us eating oranges, crapping the orange out in a toilet and sort of throwing it through our sewers into the sea. It's relying on living things eating the oranges, crapping the seeds on the ground and then growing another tree. But hey, that's nature, isn't it? That's nature. Okay? So that's those things, right? There's a couple of other things I thought about as well. Now, I'm not going to give you any theories or suppositions I have. I'm just going to say that in a lot of things, we look at every little bit of information we have as if it's the final piece of information in the puzzle, and we collate that with the couple of other limited pieces of information we have, and act like we have all the facts, and create hundreds of suppositions from that, as if we know, when we only have a tiny bit of information. We don't. All right? I'll give you an example. Dinosaurs died out 65 million years ago. All right? They didn't. They didn't. One, our carbon testing is not specific to the day, or the week, or the month, or the year. We also don't know that a comet hit the Earth and caused the events that killed off the dinosaurs. But here's something we do know. How many animals survived that and continued evolving over the 65 million years that all dinosaurs were supposed to die out? It wasn't just sea creatures. Every reptile, every bird, every mammal continued. They continued because they were still alive. We just haven't seen all the evolutionary steps yet. We're acting like we've seen a couple of things and it's all the information we need. It's not. It never is. Dinosaurs didn't die out. Now, some might have. Some might have died out, but not all. Right? So evolution is right, but even that is partially wrong. Okay? What Darwin said, and what a lot of people cling to in that, is animals evolve their physical traits to suit their environments. No, they don't. They evolve their physical traits and they adapt them to their environment, and they either function successfully within their environment or they don't. That's the way it works. Okay? Animals use the tools that they have at their disposal the same as we do. So when you think an animal has died out because it couldn't fit in with its environment. You're right, but not for the reasons you think. They failed to fit in with all the balances that existed within that environment. They were either too much preyed upon, or they couldn't adapt their tools to fit in with what already existed in that environment, and didn't migrate to an environment, or couldn't migrate to an environment that was suitable to them. That's what evolution is. Right? Every living thing develops its tools the same way we started using our opposable thumbs to create tools that other animals were using at the time, but that we started using to a more advanced level. Other animals evolve their social structures. We do, but we do it to a greater degree because we have greater tools at our disposal. Because we created language. Well, do you know what? Everything else has language too. Have you ever listened to birdsong? Do you think they're only talking about tiny things? Now, this is going to sound mad to you, all right, but I'm going to say this. Have you ever heard a bird whistle and then whistled a random couple of notes back to it and heard it change its tune? Do you know why? Because it had a few months with its parents and it was listening to multiple tunes, and while it might not know what you're saying, it actually believes you're communicating with it and is trying to communicate the same way. Same as when your dog barks at you, when you try to talk to it and say, stay, walk, find the bloody drugs, mate. They understand what you're saying because your language is different. It's just you that doesn't understand what they're saying. Every animal has that capacity that is a social animal. Non-social animals, they don't have that. An animal that spends its entire life on its own, it has no means of communicating with other animals because it's spent no other time interacting with other animals of its species. So that's the way that goes. Right? So every animal that is social, even to a small degree, has some degree of language, some degree of parental teaching, and some degree of progressing its life through what it learns from other members of its family or its tribe. Right? We're not unique in that. We just expanded the size of our tribe. So that's how evolution works as well. Cleverest octopus can still get sort of killed in a sort of tide pool. You know, the strongest monkey can still find itself strangled by a bloody boa constrictor, and its genetics don't persist or perpetuate. Alright? It's partly coincidence and partly genetics. That's what evolution is. And you get the other part, as I've just mentioned, its capacity to interact with the ecosystem within which it exists. So you have that too. There's your evolution too. Alright? Now if you doubt everything thinks like you do, yeah, and this is one of my videos as well. Okay? Look at the social size of your groups 1,000 years ago, when it was small towns or small cities with a couple of thousand individuals. Yeah? Compare that to this. Yeah? Compare that to an ant colony 250 million years ago. That ant colony 250 million years ago would have designated workers to maintain the structures for the rest of the population and to cater for population growth. You would have that. You would have scouts that would go out exploring the area looking for food sources and looking for other ant nests and ant colonies to either decide whether they were a threat or whether they were easy meat, shall we say. You would have specific parts of the population maintaining the young, feeding the young, etc. Now, does that sound anything like what we were doing 1,000 years ago? It does, doesn't it? And they were doing it 300 million years ago. So maybe it's down to population size, how intelligent we all are. Maybe it's down to the size of the social group, how much we evolve our behaviour. Well, just something to think about. You know, if you were born in the jungle, you never had anybody else to talk to, would you speak English? Of course you wouldn't. What would you eat? You'd eat the same things everything else you saw around you ate. You'd experiment on some things, not like them. You'd find other things that you experimented on and say, well, do you know what, that ain't too bad. You'd do that, same as any other animal would that was basically on its own. So it's not what you think that makes you superior to other animals and to everything else on the planet. It's how you socialise, okay? It's the size of your social groups now. You have expanded now beyond any other social groups, okay? and you're not intelligent, alright, you have more fragments of knowledge because you spend 10 years of your childhood every year, every person, possibly 15 depending on what you're doing, learning pieces of information to create as intellectual connections that other people are giving you. Alright? But here's the thing, that doesn't make you more intelligent than any other living thing. It makes you more knowledgeable and gives you more knowledge connections. So that's that. Okay? Now, we touched on it earlier, we're not going to Mars. I've given you the reason. Alright? So we have to sustain this planet. But I also said we're not meeting aliens down here anytime soon either, because they would be restricted by the same things. You're not going to get ghost aliens. That's not how nature works. You assume, because science fiction tells you, that some other aliens could expand to something beyond you. They could be ghosts. They could be wisps of vapour in the air. No. The universe created the rules that governed how you evolved, how you were created, how your initial life forms formed on this planet. Why do you think it's different anywhere else? Why do you think the universe changed the rules for this planet and not for and didn't have the same rules on every other planet? It did. Right? Now, we might see something more evolved on another planet. Well, no, I say we might see. There might be something more evolved on another planet because the life has existed for longer. But we'll never see it. Because nature has already decided, and it's shown us on this planet, how living things evolve. So stop thinking, oh, there might be ghost aliens that can spend 3 million years travelling across the universe to meet us. That's not going to happen. Alright? You might see a Voyager or a robot bloody alien at some point, same as somebody else might see our Voyager at some point. But you won't meet another alien because they can't travel any faster than we can because of their own physical constraints. So, do not look at interacting with other aliens or aliens having visited us. Alien abductions, well, that's obviously ridiculous for the same reason. Aliens sort of stand at your kitchen window. Sorry, it's not going to happen. So you've got to see that too. So again, it's here that we have to maintain. We're not going to another planet. We can't terraform Mars. It has the atmosphere that it has. Alright? We cannot put certain minerals in the soil or certain bacteria in the soil and hope, oh, do you know what? In a couple of weeks, there'll be the atmosphere that we need. That's not the way it's going to go. Alright? We ain't doing that. It's what we have now that we have to maintain. So that's how it goes. Alright? Now, I hope I haven't missed anything. Alright? There are a lot of other things I could have gone through. But those are the important things. We have to look at where we are as a species in terms of our socio-political groups, in terms of our need to rely on the planet around us, in terms of what the solar system is and the universe is around us, and in terms of realising what we are and how we have to treat everything around us. Now, I hope that's enough to change how some of you think. All right? And apologies, if I'd done this in the daylight, you would have been able to see my face. But you can already see it on the link, i.e. me, on my channel, because that's where this is going, obviously. So this is not me doing this in darkness. It just looks like it. All right? Now, I hope that's helped you all. Okay? I hope that's helped you all. But the fact of the matter is, while we may not be alone in this universe, we have to treat ourselves as alone in this universe. And we have to treat ourselves as alone on this planet and having to solve our problems. Nobody else is going to solve them for us. We have to solve them ourselves. So I hope that helps you. All right. You have a good night, guys.